Beginning at the top of a nearly perfect, paved shuttle road and ending at a city park in Oakridge, Oregon, the Larison Rock Trail is required riding. It's such a quick shuttle and such a good time and so close to town that you can't not ride this trail at some point while you're in Oakridge. Park at Greenwaters Park, then drive over to the 2102 road. You should be able to use Google Maps to find Greenwaters Park and to navigate to this trailhead. It's really not that difficult. Oakridge is super popular, so it's hard to imagine that you won't be able to find the information you need. Before I start, I do need to remind you to navigate to patreon.com/voiceovertrails and show me some love. Making these videos is fun, but it is a lot of work, and it isn't free. Also, remember to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Descending a ridiculous 2,700 feet over 3 miles, this ride, since it is typically ridden as a shuttle because the shuttle road makes it so easy, is a zero sandwich ride. Just bring a snack along and you'll be just fine. Unlike many shuttle experiences, this trail contains no transfers. You will not need to climb. Dropping through gorgeous Oakridge forest, this trail starts out smooth and fast. It won't stay smooth, but it will continue to be fast. Things start out fun with a nice set of rollers here at the beginning for you to test your mad skill on and also pick up some speed on this super kind of fast, flowy section. The rollers and turns up here are just downright tight and swoopy and a whole barrel of fun. The forest here holds onto moisture pretty well, and after a dry spring, things were still, they weren't blown out in late June. I'm sure it got worse later in the summer, but by June, it still looked nice. Even though this was the week the temperature almost got to 120 degrees here in the Pacific Northwest. It never gets that hot here, but it did. If you like off-camber, high-consequence outside turns, then this is your trail. The defining feature of Larison Rock is that it is basically one long bench from top to bottom. One big, long, steep bench. If you could compare the temperature of brake pads at the end of this ride, the rider with the coolest brake pads would probably be the fastest. It's really tempting to overuse the brakes on this trail, but if you're dragging the brakes all the way down, you're gonna have a bad time. I know I already mentioned the bench on this trail, but man, it is a tight, narrow bench. Also, it swoops up and around and over and under and in and out as you descend, so cornering ability is well rewarded on this mountain. The better you corner, the more you'll enjoy this ride. Everything on this descent is high consequence as well. It's the easiest shred to access, but it's not one for beginners. This one has been ridden by mountain bikers for decades, and because of that, it's attracted a lot of mountain biker builders, which means that there's kind of like these discrete jibs and kickers everywhere that you need them in order to facilitate a comfortable and fun descent for advanced riders. I really love how the trail jumps over to the top of the ridge here for a while before it goes back to the bench. It's cool to kind of see the forest like going off to both sides while you're on this knife edge, while you shred on this sort of narrow patch on the top here. Also, I would be remiss not to point out that there's madrone trees hiding out in these woods. How cool is that? Like the contrast between like having these big old Doug firs that you associate with wetter forests farther north, and then just like all these madrones just hanging out. It's kind of like how you weirdly see madrones up in the Puget Sound too. Like we don't expect to see that. You think of those as like a California tree, but then there they are. I don't know, the Pacific Northwest. It's truly a wonderland. It is worth mentioning that as the season wears on, brake bumps do become somewhat of an issue on this trail, as there are so many high consequence turns on ledges to nowhere that freak out beginner and intermediate riders and have them slamming on their brakes. So being so readily, and that kind of goes with how this trail is so readily accessible that it gets a ton of use, and that adds to the wear that the tread gets. Eventually, as you get closer to the bottom, the benches become even more high consequence as the surface loosens up even more. We were both dialing back and kind of dropping weight into the frame as much as we could just for the sake of self-preservation. This section of trail is just a lot gnarlier than the top. There's more turns and there are more surprises in the tread than there were up above. There's this like all this gravel that seems to be eroding out of the mountain for some reason. I don't know what it is. It's geology. Either way, you'll use up more of your suspension down here than you did up there. It's gnarly. The outside turns to oblivion are also extra scary down here. Be prepared for a little bit of pucker factor and look lively. Eventually, the trail exits onto this logging road where you'll want to turn right. That's it. That's the trail. Follow the road for less than a mile before you go down this trail, which drops into a little creek canyon. It'll join up with this little stroller path, which then connects to this really nice bridge across the middle fork of the Willamette River before you're right back where you started. So I'd like to take this moment to thank all my Patreon supporters, especially my Low Me Goodness sponsors, Andy Sewery, Charles Kim, Damon Corey, Randy Relaford, and Ty Morgan Margaret. I'd also like to thank my Hero Dirt Level sponsors, earning a mention at the end of this video: Bryce Ulrich, Heather Van Valkenburg, Jason Moore, and Pedro Cantarini. If you'd like to join this list of discerning members of the community, navigate to patreon.com/voiceovertrails and choose a contribution level that feels right for you. Have you ridden Larison Rock, by the way? What do you think of this trail? I mean, a lot of you have ridden it. I know a lot of you watching these reviews have ridden this trail. So leave me something in the leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought of this trail. If you've ridden it or if you want to ride it, I don't know, just leave me comments. I like comments. Now, get out there and go ride your bike.